Hi there, hope you're well. Today we're talking about ghost notes. Ghost notes are an integral part of developing your groove, and applying them in the right way can really start to make your drumming sound more pro. So let's look at some simple steps you can take right now to start practicing the correct application of ghost notes on the snare drum. In this lesson, we're only going to focus on playing ghost notes between the eighth notes on the hi-hat. You can of course play ghost notes on any beat of the bar and within loads of different time signatures and feels, such as triplet grooves or shuffles. But a good place to start, if this is new to you, is just playing them within an eighth note based groove. So if we start by just playing eighth notes on the hi-hat, we can make up the rest of the 16th notes in the bar by placing a ghost note between each hi-hat and essentially just playing single strokes. Try this out and keep your ghost notes nice and quiet. Use soft tap strokes and keep the stick nice and low while your right hand plays at a normal volume on the hi-hat. Another good exercise to develop the dynamic independence in your hands is to play all of the 16th notes in the bar with your left hand on the snare drum while playing the 8th notes on the hi-hat. Again, keeping the volume of the ghost notes lower than the volume of the hi-hat. When it comes to adding in the backbeat on the snare, along with whichever kick pattern you need to play, certain ghost note placements are trickier than others. So let's take a basic rock groove and see how each individual ghost note fits within it. We're going to start with the two ghost notes either side of beat 1 or beat 3, so immediately before or after the kick drum. When playing this ghost note, we need to drop the stick down onto the snare drum at the same time as our right foot is moving upwards to set up the kick drum stroke. It's always a challenge in the beginning learning to play notes between other notes. In this case, playing a 16th note between two 8th notes. Quite often you'll find in the beginning your left hand and your right foot want to move downwards together, which usually results in playing the kick drum too early. So really try to focus on these opposite motions and break it down into this 3-note pattern if it helps. Also make sure that your right hand motion stays nice and smooth on the hi-hats. Try not to let that extra note disrupt your flow or even play any extra notes on the hi-hat. Now for the ghost note that follows the kick. In this particular pattern, one of the ghost notes is now played between two 8th note kicks in beat 3. Again, pay attention to how your left hand is moving in the opposite direction to your right foot. Once you've got the hang of both of those ghost notes, try and put them into the same groove. Now we're moving on to the two ghost notes that are played either before or after the snare backbeat. These are usually trickier because we're going to have to play two consecutive notes on the snare drum, but at different volumes. So let's start with playing a ghost note immediately before the accented backbeat. To do this, we need to use an upstroke to play the ghost note and set up the louder accented snare that comes straight after the ghost note. Try to avoid using any backlift before you play the upstroke. Drop the stick down onto the snare drum as you lift away from the snare. The changing angle of the stick as you do this is enough to play this note. So trust that'll be enough volume to play the ghost note in this action. Don't be tempted to dig in or use any more downward effort to play the ghost note. To play a ghost note that follows the snare backbeat, we need to use a controlled downstroke when playing the accent, catching the rebound of the stick at a low position, then allowing the stick to drop back down onto the snare to play the ghost note. It should feel as if both of these notes are played with one motion rather than two separate movements. Again, try to avoid using any backlift before you play the ghost note. And it's also important to let the downstroke that you've used for the accent rebound back. Don't dig it into the snare and kill all of the bounce. You should feel the stick bouncing back into your hand as you cushion the rebound at a lower height. Now try putting both of these ghost notes in at the same time. So now let's throw all of the ghost notes that we've looked at into the same groove, filling in all of the 16th note spaces as we did at the start of the video, only this time with the snare accents and the kick pattern in there as well. Again, as well as focusing on your left hand technique, be sure to still pay attention to everything else that you're doing. Keep your hi-hat motions nice and smooth and consistent. Make sure none of your kick drum placements are being pushed or pulled and they're moving out of time. And just make sure everything feels good as a whole. So there's a whole load of combinations that you can use these ghost notes in, and obviously a whole load of different grooves that you can use them in as well. And one of the things that I've always loved about some of my favourite ghost note grooves from different drummers, different bands, is how they've chosen specific ghost note patterns within the grooves that they're playing. So they're not just playing all of the notes all the time, they're not playing random ghost notes here and there. It's a specific pattern that fits the groove that they need to play. They're filling in spaces that need to be filled and leaving spaces that don't need to be filled. Intention is the key, and you can make your drumming sound way more musical by playing specific ghost notes and repeating exactly the same phrase in every bar. Listen to how the following grooves are totally transformed, even though the kick pattern's the same, the snare accents are in the same place on the 2 and 4, but just by changing the ghost notes, you can totally change how a groove feels and how it sounds. As always, there's a free PDF download for this lesson. Just check the link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.